Hey, how's it going? So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to redo Coaching Agile Journeys, the very first episode we ever did. Um, I gave the presentation to start, and it was about overcoming the Agile adoption failure modes and why things are put in place for a reason. I mean, it all started with some of the best, and Kent Schwaber, Jeff Sutherland, Kent Beck. Um, Kenny Rubin wrote a really good book on it, and I've had some discussions with Ken Rubin. These are some of the best. They've made it work in real environments and real scenarios, and I had a good amount of success myself back at CBS Interactive. So I'm going to give this presentation and pay close attention on some of the things that I bring up. There's such things as prescriptions or prescribed methods, and I also believe in identifying standards. Where do we start? And then where do we move on from that starting point? Why do we deviate? And understanding that deviation. So let me go ahead and get on with the presentation. I am going to share my screen right now, and I am recording this. So I will bring this presentation up and walk you through it. So it's overcoming the painful process syndrome. And I think we've all been through some painful processes. I think some of us are in it right now. This happens more than often. Very few times do you walk into a unicorn and rainbows type situation, the Spotifys of the world. So a little bit about myself. I'm an efficiency specialist. I've been doing that now for well over 10 years and have saved a lot of money for companies, from Tribune to CBS Interactive, Availity, Florida Blue, and now I'm currently with CoFence. So Penn State graduate, I take great pride in my alma mater. It was a very good place to study. I'm a certified Scrum Master, but hey, just because I have a license doesn't mean I could drive, right? I mean, hopefully I'm a pretty good driver when it comes to Scrum and Agile. I'm actually also an Agile certified coach, but I'm a pragmatic leader and an enterprise Agile coach. I tend to look at things organizationally and see the big picture on how things all interact and play together. And usually you can find ways to make things operate a lot better when you're looking at the whole. So anyway, I did this as a joke, the $1 million bill and Jeff we trust. I had a team one time back at cbssports.com, and one of our developers said that. They said, well, he's coming to lead us, and you know what? We trust this guy. So hopefully by the end of this, you'll see where you could trust me as well, and you could determine that. So who follows instruction manuals anyway? Throw it out the door and see what the results are. And I'm going to show you what the results of throwing instruction manuals out the door are in a second. And of course, we're not going to do the exercise, but I think it's important right now for me to walk you through this exercise. I usually say, build me a boat. I'll split a large group into teams of 3 or 4, or I'll just have a team of 3 or 4. And then I'll say, okay, you know what? I want a boat that floats. I want to be able to get to an island. I don't want it to have any holes in it. I'd like a really good cruising speed of like 10 to 15 knots. I'd like to be comfortable on this boat and have fun on the boat recreationally. I don't have a whole lot of other constraints or other needs. I'm just giving you some basic things. So basically, give me a boat. And what happens is we compare these boats. And when I ask for a boat, I'm like, be creative, put out whatever you want. So let's go ahead and move on over here. And, these are some of the boats. Like, did I want a houseboat? Did I want a multi-million-dollar yacht? Did I want a fishing boat? Or check out this little stealth thing here. Better yet, here it is, the ghost boat. There are all different kinds of boats that anyone could have drawn. Here's a boat to get me to freedom, to get me to sovereignty, to get me to a promise, maybe that's the kind of boat I want. But if I just tell people, draw me a boat, I want it to float, I want it to move about 10 knots, they could give me all kinds of stuff. That can involve a whole lot of rework. It can involve a whole lot of, yeah, that's not exactly what I wanted. I wasn't very specific. I didn't really give them a prescription, right? And but none of those are quite what I wanted. So I usually say, let's try this one more time, but this time I'm going to tell you I want to be able to fit 10 people on it comfortably. I want it to have really good buoyancy and really good stability, even in rougher kind of waters. I want it to have about a 25 to a 50 horsepower engine on it. I want it to have a driver's seat with a steering wheel. I want it to have rails all around the outside. I'd like it to float on some things called pontoons. And then as I start describing this, now I'm working you in a direction where I'm giving you a specific kind of boat. And with that, you're going to get a lot closer to what I'm actually looking for, a lot closer to a standard, something that we could build out that's a boat that I'm defining that I know works because it's been proven to work before. So you see where I'm going with this. It's got a blueprint. It's got a mold. Let's start with that blueprint and that mold, and let's see how we can make that boat better. So some not so good examples. You ever go to IKEA, and man, there's a bazillion different things at IKEA. There's all these instruction manuals, and oops, if you throw out the manual and you don't follow the manual, you get nothing more than this. Ever see the Pinterest gone wrong? Here it is. I'm gonna build some of these stormtroopers. I want to make this SpongeBob SquarePants popsicle, and this is what Pinterest fails, right? And there may have been a recipe behind it. They may have told you exactly how to do it. You may have had to use fondant, not fondant, and not this type of icing, but there's a recipe behind it. Here's another one that was just hilarious. It kind of looks like an evil hedgehog down there at the bottom. Someone absolutely Pinterest failed on. And in bunny rolls, oh my goodness, the bottom ones look like something that I would have done. But I'm sure there were step-by-step instructions to get you closer to these things. So you might say, Jeff, where are you going with this? I thought, in Jeff we could trust, and all you're telling us is how things are failing, right? Well, what I want to tell you and what I want to drive home is no manuals or no instructions are going to equal some really poor results, which you just saw. Creativity and expertise is required. I mean, you have to have someone that's an expert. You have to have someone that's a creative thinker. You have to have, good leadership, the right roles in place. I mean, it does take a little bit of that. You can't fake it till you make it. And none of this is a la carte. This is probably the worst thing that I've ever seen my entire life, is everyone thinks that doing Agile or being Agile or following an Agile framework is like eating from a buffet. Hey, I like this change thing. I want more of this change thing, but yeah, this time boxing thing I don't like. Your backlog grooming, that's a waste of time. Daily stand-ups, let's just chat each other or just have a discussion as we go. Yeah, that's the a la carte I'm talking about. So, I usually do a quick survey. How many people do traditional waterfall handoff type processes? How many people are in Agile? How many people do no process at all? How many people do a hybrid process? How many are doing Scrum or Kanban? So we'll dive into Agile. This is for the Agilists. Agile is perceived most of the time as change all the time. The reason why people go with Agile is because they think it's so nimble that you could pivot anytime you want. And that pivoting costs lots and lots of money. You have to still have some planning. You have to have some thought behind it. And you have to do it at the right times. You could even do it late in the process, but you still got to do it at the right times and under the right constraints. It's a process. No, Agile itself is not a process. Agile is a mindset. Agile is this ability to be agile, to work with business. It's people and interactions over processes and tools. It's the manifesto. It's a series of principles and values. People could be agile no matter what environment they work in. The frameworks get more into the process. No real structure. We'll just wing it. We could make things, we're just being agile. I hear people say that all the time. Like they'll introduce change or they'll change something on the fly and start laughing and go, well, this is agile, right? We're being agile. Nah, that's wrong too. That's a myth. We could do what we want when we want because we're self-directed and we're self-organized. So you know what? People take that for granted and take advantage of that all the time. And that's not what Agile is. You have to operate under certain constraints and you have to operate using a framework and you have to embody the manifesto principles and values. And there's great guides out there. It's trendy. I hear this stuff doesn't work. Businesses want it because they hear this word agile and they want it. And actually that's part of some failure modes that I'm going to get into later on. No planning or lightweight planning. That is such a poor, actually, I believe heavily in release planning. I believe in product increment planning. And I believe in agile project or product planning where you actually, or what is it? The program increment planning, the PI planning, where you plan up front and you bring all stakeholders together and anybody that's going to be impacted by the overall project and you see where your dependencies are at. These things help you mitigate a lot of things later down the road. Agile's perceived totally wrong. Just another project manager forcing process on us. Well, look, that's not me. I am not coming in. I'm not the Agile police, and I'm not forcing anything on anybody. But you know what? This stuff has been proven to work when it's done the right way, using the prescribed methods out of the book with the right organizational setup and the right support. I'm telling you. So what and why Agile? For knowledge, worker, and innovation. That's why this was brought up. It's, hey, the old way of trying to plan everything up front is not working. And then when we get 6 or 7 months in, we're building a product. We may be on time. We may be under budget, but this may not be the right product that we need. It may not be, what the customer wants. It could be demanded, like I said, it's that trendy word. We need Agile here. Well, why do you need Agile here? What problems are you trying to solve? Empowerment gets results, and that's it. What we're trying to do is, I think it was Steve Jobs or Jeff Bezos said, I don't hire smart people to take orders. I hire smart people to be critical thinkers and solve problems. And we got to trust those people. We got to empower those people. We spend a lot of time interviewing them, a lot of time looking at their background and their skills and seeing how sharp they are. Why? So they could come into the organization and we could bark orders at them and make them be order takers. That's just not the best way to operate, really. Speed to deliver and speed to value. I mean, how do we get things to market quicker? Google's pushing out stuff 100 plus times a day, 100 plus releases a day. How are you ever going to compete with a company like that when the only thing you push out is 2, 3, 4 months, in some cases a year plus we're delivering something? My goodness, and here's Google 100 times a day. Values and principles. These are guiding lights. You go back on those and go, are we really adhering to these values and principles? It sets a good culture for the organization to operate under. So what are these values and principles? Here it is, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. I'm telling you, everywhere I go, if I were to do, okay, let's go on a scale of, like if there were a fulcrum, what percentage are we with valuing individuals and interactions over processes and tools? it seems processes and tools would be 70% and individuals and interactions would be 30%. Because, oh, we got to use Jira, and we got to use Jira for this, and we got to use boards for that, and you got to put your tickets in right. We spend so much time with that we forget to collaborate. We forget to have conversations, valuable conversations. We start using chat tools instead of just getting on Zoom or getting on Skype or whatever it is and having a conversation face-to-face. Working software over comprehensive documentation. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. That's huge. Sitting around negotiating contracts where you can just, hey, look, how about we knock something out in about 3 weeks? I'm going to put it in your hands, and I want to see what you think about it. And let's improve it from there. Respond to change over following a plan. The most abused Agile manifesto value of all time. I love change. Well, guess what? It's there so we could embrace change in the right ways. All right, so the Agile 12 guiding principles, and I'm going to kind of blow through these pretty quick. The highest priority is to satisfy customers through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. And I usually ask anyone that's operating in Agile, do you do that? Are you following that principle? Be honest. Are you delivering early? Are you delivering valuable software? Welcome changing requirements even late. This is, again, change, that word. We love it. We love to change things all the time. That's how you innovate. You iterate on things, or you get feedback and you change. But you don't just come in and jam someone's sprint up and go, we're going to change right now. You wait, you put it into a queue, you put it into a backlog, and you get to it at the right time or just in time where you're addressing it to meet the needs of the customer. Deliver working software frequently from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, preferably on the shorter scale. Business people and developers work together throughout. This is a huge one, and that starts with the product owner being part of the team, being embedded with the team. The product owner is there all the time. You may need larger scale where you have a product line manager or a product manager that works with all the product owners for a certain product line, and those product owners are in with the team every day. They're helping make decisions. They're reviewing things. They're not waiting till the end of the sprint to approve everything. Product owners should, yes, that's what I wanted. They're either accepting or rejecting work. And the developers, they should be easily accessible so the developers, while they're there, can ask questions and they can refine and make the products better together. Build projects around motivated individuals and give them the environment, support, and trust them to get the job done. Build these SEAL Team 6s, lots of them. Give them a problem to solve. Motivate them. I go, I want to see what you could produce, and step back and challenge them to commit and produce it and see what they give you. Most effective and preferred communication is face-to-face. Again, we get caught up in, let me just chat or let me send an email. Email today is nothing more than white noise. Even if you're working remote, get on Zoom, get on something where you could see each other and have a face-to-face conversation. If you're co-located, spin around and talk to somebody. Working software is primary measure of progress. Do you have working software? Does it work? Is it buggy? What kind of use case studies have you done on it? Have you did any focus groups? What's this working software look like? Agile promotes sustainable development. The entire team should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. This is another one that I don't like this one. I want my developers to work like crazy, or you're not smart, you're not being pragmatic, and you're not thinking through what is our minimal viable product. And no, we need all this, and we need it by this date. And I don't care. These guys got to deliver this. No, you're going to burn them out. That's probably one of the things that's responsible for the most turnover of people, is just burning them out. Bad managers and burnout. So you want to avoid that. I think it was Crystal or Extreme Program Development. What happened was they have a mandated 40-hour work week, and for that reason alone. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility, thinking through things, basically. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the work not done. One of my old bosses, Kenny, used to say, I love this one. Basically, what that is devaluing the things in the backlog that you don't need to be working on right now, or the things that you're working on pushing you towards delivering an MVP, and the nice to haves at the bottom. There's so often do you see people and they're working on like gold plating things when you don't even have the back walking skeleton of this thing done yet. And people were working on gold platings because somebody snuck it in and said, wouldn't this be cool to have? The best architecture and requirements designs emerge from self-organizing teams. Again, give engineers a problem to solve and let them organize and see what they can come up with. And then at regular intervals, teams should reflect on how to become more effective, then tune and adjust accordingly. Totally behind that. That is retrospecting 101. However, what this whole presentation about is how do we avoid agile adoption failure modes. I'm going to get into that in just a second, but the bottom line is start somewhere you could trust. Start somewhere that's already been proven. Remember that instruction manual I talked to you? When you get the IKEA product and it's got 7 trillion pieces, you want to follow each step so you don't have extra pieces and parts at the end, or you don't have one of those goofed up mistakes that I showed you before. It all seems easy, and I think everyone can attest it's not easy. You're dealing with different personalities. You're dealing with politics. You're dealing with dogma. You're dealing with fiefdoms. It's not easy, and the only way it gets easy is if you get lots of air support, lots of ground support, grassroots movement, and everyone's in and rowing the same direction, and that's almost impossible to do, but it's doable. A la carte, the buffet, that comes up all the time. Generally, in the management sector, or the product sector, we like this and we like that. But no, this other stuff's too rigid, and we don't want these ceremonies. Hard to change, so people just revert. That's it. It's not working. We don't like it. Let's just go back to doing what we do and just put our heads down and cowboy code the rest of our lives. So many tried and failed. Bad experience syndrome, or I heard somebody else tried that agile stuff and it's just a mess. I mean, I hear it from people that are my friends. Oh, you're one of those guys, an agilist. Do you believe in that mumbo jumbo? It's like black magic, that stuff. Well, guess what? When applied right, it works really well. But again, it's got to be applied right. There is a prescription to this stuff. Fear, dysfunction maybe, and this does. I mean, I tell you what, you start to operate in these time boxes and an iterative development, you really start to see how much dysfunction an organization bubbles to the top. That's why air support's needed. It's because how do we remove this dysfunction, or how do we mitigate this dysfunction? And then lack of trust. I mean, I see it in organizations all. Management doesn't trust the people, product doesn't trust the developers don't trust the user experience. QA doesn't trust the developers. This trust thing going on, and personal safety. We all should be able to have open conversations and trust that we're hiring the best people in, and get a challenge and work towards a common challenge together and deliver something that has meaning and something that has value. We sort of have a problem here. That happens all the time. These are all problems. So how do we do this? And that's probably the $1 million question. So start with a prescription, just like you go to a doctor. And the best thing you can do with a doctor is he's going to look at you and go, you know what? You have the flu. I can't treat you with amoxicillin. I can't treat you with a Z-Pak. You need Theraflu. Or let me do a strep test, and he's treating you for strep. It's a certain type of thing that you need a certain type of prescription for that's going to fit well with what you're trying to accomplish. So always say, what problem are you trying to solve? Great. Scrum may be your prescription for that. And it's not for all teams. Another team, eventually, as you get into things, is like, this right here is a customer service team. They support customer service. So they do a whole lot of fixes and they respond to customer service calls. They may be a Kanban team, but guess what? Kanban's the least prescriptive, but there's an out of the box method. There is a prescription, and everyone should buy in and start with the prescription. Stay true to the values and principles. I say, let's go back to that and go, are we producing working software over comprehensive documentation? Are we delivering quick on shorter timescales? I go back to all these things. Are we stopping and reflecting and fixing things to improve what we're doing? And I can read the values and the principles to the team or to the organization or to management and go, are we really this? You should ask yourself that. Test yourself. As leaders, educate yourself on Agile. You are leading the charge. You're becoming servants. Let's flip that triangle upside down. You're now on the bottom, feeding up, going, what can I do to support this movement? How can I foster a great Agile culture where we could be successful doing this and reap all the values that Agile promises? Hire and empower an Agile expert. Often I hear, and there's Agile experts in certain organizations. I've been to 5 organizations now, and I can walk in, not myself. I mean, I've done it before, but I could go, this person over here, I've worked with this person, empower them. How do we do this? Let's build a plan, and let's see if we can get buy-in across the company, and let's see if we can get management to help be that air support we need to senior leadership and empower that Agile expert. You don't have to go and get a consultant and spend millions of dollars doing a review of your organization when you have people inside. Empower them. Or go outside and go, we're going to hire that Agile leader for our organization. We're going to hire somebody that's done this before and bring them in and empower them. Let them lead it. They're an expert in process. Empower the teams. Ask them, how do we solve this problem? You guys come up with a way. Let's figure this out. Don't deviate from the basics. Always start out with the blocking and tackling. Too often do I see, instead of taking the out of the box method, well, we don't have a product owner with the team. Or if we have a product owner, the product owner's not doing all the things that a product owner should do because the product owner's doing 3 jobs, or the product owner supporting 8 teams. Or here's another thing. Stand-ups, let's just do them 3 days a week. These are synchronization events. Backlog, let's just go into planning and shoot from the hip. Now, stick to the basics. Get the basic blocking and tackling down. Create transparency. Find ways to use the tools that empower the transparency you need, that scale through the organization, and use them consistently. I use this way, and then this team over here uses it that way. We're never going to have a common dashboard. We're never going to have transparency across the whole entire organization. Fail fast. So a lot of times you're going to start with the basics, but start with the prescription. Start with a standard, something that's backed with scrum.org or Agile Alliance or Lean Kanban, and start there and go, well, that doesn't work quite as well for us, so let's try this. And then eventually, through retrospecting, you're going to make failures, but you're going to constantly improve, and you're going to find that sweet spot that you're working in. And if you tailor small. Don't try to fix, 10 things went wrong. What's one thing we have a complete control over? Let's fix that one thing. Now we only have 9. Now let's fix number 9. Oh, now we only have 8. Far too often do I go, oh, there's 10. Let's try to tackle them all. And then next sprint goes, we still have 10. Tailor small. What do we fix, and how do we improve, and how do we isolate that? Change your focus. Focus on idle work, not idle workers. You don't ever want something sitting in limbo. Waiting is a lean form of waste, probably one of the bigger lean forms of waste. Favor leading metrics over lagging metrics. Are we on track? What's our velocity looking like? How's our burn down looking? Where are we trending to? Don't wait until you've already got there and been messed up and look back on it and go, oh, wow, we got beat up there. We saw it coming. It's like a hurricane forecast. We just didn't leave the state or leave the coast. Earned value management is good, not great. Everything doesn't come, look, the dollar's great, but you also got to figure what is the value that we're trying to build. Is it an adoption? Is it keeping people in a sticky environment? There's other metrics other than just earned value management. So the Agile focus is for success. Pay attention to outcomes, not outputs. Everybody's looking at the outputs, volume, heavy velocity, how many things were released. How does it work? How are users adopting it? What are people saying about it? What's the quality that your team just put out? What kind of results are they delivering? Measure results, not activity. I have a bunch of busybodies, but busybodies don't always produce results. Follow trends, not numbers. Again, those leading metrics, you'll start seeing trends real quick. And most importantly, evaluate teams, not individuals. Get them working. No, Navy SEALs are not commended for individuals. I go back to SEAL Team 6. They are a team. They operate as a team, and no one's left behind. Same should go here. Get them working as a team. So here are the Agile failure modes I was telling you about. A checkbook commitment does not equal organizational change management. The easiest thing that senior leadership could do is stroke a check or make a payment to a consultant company. The consultant company comes in, gives a whole lot of do this, do that, change here, change there. They leave, and what do they leave you with? Nothing but a mess that costs a lot of money. Just because you hired somebody to come in doesn't mean all of a sudden you're there, you're Agile. Culture doesn't support the change. You have to create a culture. Agile itself, I told you, is a mindset. It's values, it's principles, it's a culture. It should be applied holistically. People in marketing should know what you're doing. People in advertising should know what you're doing. The executives should know what you're doing. They should understand that this is such a good, empowering culture. No respectives or retrospectives or bad retrospectives. Again, like what good's a retrospective if you said, well, we could improve these 12 things, so let's go out and fix them tomorrow. All right. And you put action items and you put names to the action items, but who has time to do 12 things in the next sprint? Do one of them. Do a good retrospective and start playing whack-a-mole and whacking those moles down to the wire. Race to finish features, architecture becomes unstable. Cutting corners, we're burning them out. We're pushing them down to, what good's your product if you haven't so many bugs? I do it all the time. I'll launch something. I'll start using it. It crashes. A link doesn't work. And what's the first thing I think? I'm not going back and using that app. I'm not going back to that website again. You'll lose users so fast, your whole product will die on the vine. Lack of collaboration in Agile planning. Here we go. I'm back to the Agile planning thing. You have to have some sort of planning. And there has to be lots of collaboration, and you have to get lots of people involved. Talk about what parts does this product or project touch? What kind of dependencies might we have? What kind of frameworks are we going to use? Is everybody on board? What do our wireframes look like? What's our architectural design going to look like? Then let's start putting together a backlog and get to work and figuring out what our release plan's going to be. How are we going to release this thing? None or too many product owners, or not enough. A product owner should own a backlog and should be with a team. That's the bottom line. And if you don't have enough product owners that can own a certain sliver of the product and say, this is mine to make better, then that's pretty tough. Bad Scrum Master acting as a command and control manager. We'll see that all the time. So many Scrum Masters walk around pounding their chest. We need to do it this way. We need to do it that. You're doing this wrong. You're not doing. That's not Agile. Look, we have to have some couth. We have to start asking powerful questions. We need to coach people at the team level. And one bad apple could spoil a whole bunch. No on-site evangelist or Agile coach. This is huge. You need an expert on site, somebody that knows this stuff inside and out. They live it, they breathe it, they've experienced it, they've been through a transformation, they know how to talk to leaders, they have good communication skills, they're detail oriented. That will help you. You don't have one of those, your chances of failure just went up. No solid, high-performing, trusted, and empowered teams. I always say, cherry pick a team. Find your SEAL Team 6. Find a team that you can go, let's test this out with this team. If this team can't do it, nobody can. And you'll see how it'll work. So you have to have solid, trusted, empowered teams. A tsunami of technical debt, bugs, and issues. I've worked with a few teams that they just put them off. They said, look, we're a race to get to the deadline. We'll come back and do the bugs later. We'll come back and refactor later. We'll come back and address the tech debt later. Only 9 sprints down the road, and they're like 80 to 100 plus bugs in the queue. There's so much refactoring that needs to go on that they could probably spend the next 2 months doing that. That now they're set up and they can't, they're underwater. They're drowned. They can't catch up. Traditional performance appraisals. That's so old school. In Agile, it's all about the team. If the team either makes their goals or they don't. If one person doesn't make the goal in the team doesn't make the goals. That's the way it works. Reverting to traditional or nothing. Like, that's it. Throw it out. We heard Agile's dying. This change is hard. You know what? You're going to have people that resist. You're going to have people that push back. And challenging things is great. It keeps us all honest, and it makes us realize, are we doing the right thing? But there are also rebels. There are revolters. I'm not doing it. I'm not showing up to planning. I don't like this stuff. I don't want to do daily stand-ups. Guess what? Management hasn't left the Agile building. We still need managers to have difficult talks and go, you know what? This is what we've all committed to do. What's your opposition to doing this? And if you don't want to do the, be agile, like we're being agile, then maybe there's a better fit in another organization that's doing waterfall, or maybe even in our organization, there's a better fit. But we need people on here that buy into the program and want to be part of this system. So yeah, this was a clip, and Big Brother, you see it all the time, and it's all about trust. And this guy, he actually says, sorry. He goes, but I had to vote you out because we just lost that trust. We couldn't trust you anymore. Big Brother's voting people out, and this stuff's cut through because they don't trust people. What do you think happens in our environments with all the politics that go on? Once you lose trust, you're trying to vote somebody out the door. Why go there? Try to build trust, not break it down. So last but not least, that whole trust factor. Trust is a must. Relationships and marriage are founded on trust. What's the number one cause of divorce rate? Infidelity and lack of trust. I can't trust my spouse. You make a commitment, you stick to that commitment, and you lock yourself in, and you build trust with each other. And trust me, there are all kind of temptations and all kind of distractions and problems that you go through, but trust is the backbone of those relationships. Encourage and empower. Look, I trust you to get the job done. I hired you. You're more than qualified. Let me see what you could do. Let's see what kind of results you could deliver. Last but not least, like I said, we trust in Jeff. Either you trust me or you don't. I've been down this path before, and hopefully you guys have been able to take something away from this. Like I said, get to a prescribed method, get to a place where you have standards, you're backing yourself with things that you know already work, your organization's structured properly, you have a reason why you're using the tools to create transparency, you're using them consistently, you're creating dashboards and metrics that mean something that everyone can use, and everyone's using it consistently. Everyone's on board, they're all rowing the same direction, and you're going to reach that utopia. but start with a standard. Get everybody on board and get yourself structured the right way, not only just for small time at the team, but eventually you could take and scale this model out. And the scaling is going to be easy once you prove this system works. But remember, in Jeff, we trust. No I in team, we trust. And with that, we got to the Q&A, and that's pretty much going to wrap up this whole entire presentation. And I thank you for tuning in and seeing how you could avoid Agile adoption failure modes. And trust me, no organization is perfect. Everybody's facing turbulence, or you're in muddy waters, or you have a lot of politics, dogma, fiefdoms. Maybe your teams aren't structured the most economically sensible way. And by the way, go look at Kenny Rubin's Economically Sensible Scrum. Amazing stuff, how he sets up teams to be cross-functional. Focus on value streams. Focus on how you can build something that works. But again, start with a prescription. Otherwise, you're going to end up with one of those Pinterest gone wrongs, or I didn't follow the instructions on my IKEA furniture and now my furniture is not put together correctly. Start with something you know that's proven to work. Scrum.org, look at the Scrum guide and go, how do we align closely to this? How do we build teams that are going to be successful, that follow this? And how do we as a culture become agile? How do we have an agile culture? And do we follow the manifesto values? Do we follow the principles? And are we agile? And with that, ask yourself and your organization those questions. And by all means, you can reach out to me. I'm on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn, and you can contact me on either one of those. My name is Jeff Koors, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch this presentation.